Hey,
Hello. How's it going?
yeah, going pretty good. I felt decently productive over the last week, just doing a scattering of things, and then now
Nice.
uh, with this min max, 3 minute documentary Doc Lightning in May, that always means like I have a motivation to do a project, and whenever I have a clear project that I want to do, I feel all like kind of like well-rounded motivation. Just the excitement of
Uh-huh.
knowing that I'm going to do one thing makes me feel like I can do other things.
Totally. Totally.
Did you ever
Yeah, that's
do?
cool. Do you have any ideas for the
Yeah, yeah. I did some filming this morning in the Japanese garden in SF here, and so I have all that
nice?
footage. And yeah, I'm gonna work that into something most likely. Actually, on Fiverr as well. I paid $10 to a modular synth person on Fiverr to make a 1 minute looping soundtrack. So that's probably the music I'll use.
Cool.
Yeah, I've
That's
never
pretty
tried
crazy.
Fiverr before, but it was kind of fun just like making the request and then knowing that someone else is working on a thing and it's gonna drop at some point, and then it motivated me actually a little bit knowing that someone else is gonna send me music. It was sort of like, well, I guess this is official now. Like I'm gonna do this project because I'll be having this
Right.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, you've already started.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I can't wait to see how it turns out. I'm not sure if I'll do one. I did one the first year I did I filmed my partner and her little nephew making a video game.
Making one?
Um
Oh, like in some platform.
yeah. Yeah, like a little web game. It was like a sort of teaching him to code. Um, it was just Flappy Bird basically,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, it was fun. I had never made anything like that anymore. I feel like mine was like I I was watching the stream the the one 2 years back live, and I was like getting progressively more nervous because I was like everybody else's is so well produced. Like I was like, I shot this like on my phone and like did used iMovie and have no experience whatsoever. And it's like I think mine was the least well produced, but I think they liked it and thought it was cute. So like, oh phew, at least it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah, when the thing that's happening to me now is when I go back and I look at mine, they seem very like overexposed in a lot of the shots, or like the one of the days that I was filming was like a lot of white fog around San Francisco, and so I notice I think I should like I've never done color correction before in DaVinci Resolve, but I did watch a short tutorial recently, and I can kind
Nice.
of see that there's like these minor values you can tweak to tint the color and to darken it or something like that. And I don't know if I am even able to really tell creatively what I would want to alter about the color of a shot, but I can kind of see that definitely in any produced movie the shots are so deep. I know the rules of taking a good
Yeah.
photograph is that you have to have a dark spot and a light spot, and the contrast to make something look
Uh-huh.
deep and rich. Yeah, you need to have a wide range between the dark and the light points, and you can
Yeah,
by
that's the
doing
extent
color
of my
correction. Yeah,
knowledge.
you can. Yeah, so then how to sort of get that? Yeah, because I see a lot of the footage I take. I think that's what's really that would be the thing missing from the footage I take, and why it doesn't look even better is that it's like a lot of washed out stuff. I
Mhm.
think somehow I sort of feel like maybe the when you film something on an iPhone and you bring it into Resolve, the way like the video format and the colors end up overexposed a little bit somehow. Like it just kind of gives you that data, and then that's the format that it sort of drops it in, and then it's up to the person to bring it back down to get the range
Uh-huh.
correct. And I think even maybe if I do that a little, I just don't want to like get in. I don't want to do too much, and then each shot in the video will be different. I sort of rely on shooting all in one session to keep all the shots the same. But if I start
Yeah,
tweaking the color
that
of
makes
one of the shots, then I feel like they all have to be tweaked, or some of them, and then it gets into like watching and rewatching and watching for like the color change to happen, and then trying to like smooth it out, and that's kind of an insane point to get to if I ever got
past the
there.
level that you want to be putting into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would love though if I could tweak it a little bit and have it be something closer to just a really compelling shot, because some of the shots are it's so easy to get nice looking shots in the Zen garden, but I know that there's going to be a bit of some things will be too bright or too dark or something, and I'm kind of interested to see, can I just make the shots look really polished?
Yeah, this is a cool way to sort of learn. I don't know what your experience is with DaVinci Resolve and video production in general, but
Yeah,
I feel
pretty
like
much just edit, just
that's it.
knowing how to edit, or like the cut. I basically
Yeah.
I cut the clips and I rearrange, maybe slow them down, zoom, uh,
Uh-huh.
nothing, and then like just the pre-built titles on screen. But that seems,
Nice.
yeah, for a while I was thinking maybe that's all there is to editing, but now I think color correction is another domain that is the final layer of polish on top of a documentary. But for one of these, it's almost like because it's not, it's almost like a thing should not look too serious if it's a 3-minute documentary that's just off the cuff anyway.
Yeah.
And so then it would be like the better it looks, there's like a mismatch. Then I have to do better writing and tighter editing, and the music should also be on par. It's like if one ingredient is way lower, then it just stands out. And so they should all be sort of cheesy or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll join you in the
Oh, yeah. You posted
making
here
it
though
a
that
documentary, but
you are making a video right now. You said your comic book style chess storytelling.
oh yeah,
video.
yeah.
But you
I
could
am excited
could you
about that,
submit that? Do you
actually.
think?
Yeah.
Could that be your min-max video?
Oh man. I don't think so. Like I want to make like I just have an idea to do like very like silly high fantasy sci-fi style story like through chess where there's characters that are totally absurd that draw from like chess history, and some are sort of like uh random, like Mickey Mouse or something, and it's like how would these different players play. Maybe there's different things that happen like uh sort of outside of the games that affect them, and um yeah, just something very, very silly that's like not connected to reality. So I don't know if it
Mm.
quite fits the bill for um like the min-max thing. I think is like the theme, I think tends towards like highlighting humanity,
Yeah.
or something very tangible, something very real.
Yeah.
And
Maybe then it
yeah,
would just be.
so maybe
I
not
feel like
that.
you could make a video that's like documenting the making of this idea, but that would of course just be making a second video and kind of uh,
Uh-huh.
only if it
No,
worked
that's
out
yeah,
where like sometimes for me it's
yeah.
like if a base project is just for me, I won't do it. But if I get the motivation to make a making of video for an audience that is there, then I'll actually make the thing that I want to make, because I need to make it to make the making of
Uh-huh.
video to show to the other people. And it's like a
Yeah, yeah.
chain
I
of
feel that.
or like chain of accountability or something.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit what I'm doing with the video game stuff, like making a website and sort of doing a little blog and like all this stuff. It's like and to
Mhm.
create a Steam page and all that. It's like to force myself to then finish, because it's like, well, like I'm if I'm putting out all these things in the making of stage, then eventually it'll just be
Yeah.
done.
It's exciting. I'm very excited with Doc Lightning because it's very fun to think. Like even for, I don't want to throw out like ideas that make you feel like you got to make something, but it's exciting to think that you could make a 3-minute documentary about this whole point of life you're at. Like you're trying to pivot into the games industry, you're making side projects, you're doing the chess thing. That's all. That could all
Yeah.
sort of be put into almost like a little time capsule of like of where you're at, and in this community I'm sure other people are like in the back of their mind thinking of similar transitions of industry into, like, everybody wants to find a good fit in game dev, and but there's not
Yeah, that's
necessarily.
true. That's true.
Yeah, I just find if I when I can sort of lock in and feel like, yeah, like what's going on in my life is an interesting moment and should be captured, and then having an excuse to make something of a certain quality that talks about, like, documents a little part of my life, it feels like the direction I want to move in. And then if I just line that up
Mm.
with something that's happening anyway, it feels not as daunting. I don't have to spend my own motivation. I can just sort of do things that I feel compelled to do because I don't want to submit something that isn't good, or something, so it pushes me to like refine things a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, at least, yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember what you made. If you did you make anything for the last two Doc
The Dock
Lightnings?
Lightnings. Yeah, I'm doing a series. It turns out the first one I made was called Running Past Places, and then I made Running Past Places 2. And so now
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna make Running Past Places 3.
That makes total
Uh,
sense. Nice.
and that was
I don't,
feels
I
lucky.
actually,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember watching that first one and feeling like so like I like it was so awesome because like yeah, I mean we're both, like long distance runners. You
Oh,
you
right.
know
Yeah.
further than me, but it like all those like places and all like the beautiful things. I was like, yeah, this is exactly how I feel running like
Oh,
along
yeah.
the coasts of San Francisco in particular, and like seeing all the same places that I think are beautiful that you pointed out. I didn't know that was you, but I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, that was really cool. And you know what? I think I never watched the second Doc Lightning. Now that we're talking about it, so I
Mm.
have to go back and watch those.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
I from the
yeah.
second one was called Running Past Places 2: Walking Past Places, and it's about kind of
Uh-huh.
walking similar areas and different chain of thought. But the
Nice.
plot of it is actually I go to Chinatown and buy sesame balls, and then I just kind of like walk around different places and eat them.
Uh-huh. Sweet. Perfect.
But now I have my title
Yeah,
this
I'm
year is
excited
going to
to
be
watch that.
it's going to be Running Past Places 3: Chilling in Spaces. And I'm pretty sure that it's like
Uh-huh.
that'll probably be the actual title, and then I think that's going to work in with the idea that I have, because the space that I'm chilling in will be this Japanese garden, but it'll be sort of a different reflection, but I think it'll fit the title.
Nice. Sweet. Sweet, sweet. Yeah, that's cool. I feel like you've also done a similar thing with the game jams, like um, building on previous ones
Yeah.
a bit, or with like
And
Walking
that's starting
Simulator being
that
inside
building
the
idea that
yeah.
is leading to some nervousness on my part, because I always now it's like, well, I did something cool and then I did a meta thing on top of it, and I can't just keep doing a meta thing, but I have to do something. Like, it'll feel bad if
Yeah.
it's not, if I regress into something worse, and so it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like you can just show up and do whatever. Like, the first time felt like that was like I can do whatever, but now it's like, well, I've set a standard for myself at least that I want to maintain, but I don't know if I can do it. And what if it's not, what if I always comparing it to the last thing. And that's,
Yeah.
I guess it's good overall facing that, because that's just what I would always have to face. And it's kind of fun to have an audience expecting something and wanting to meet their expectations, but not somehow. I mean, that's like this
Yeah.
never ending problem of how do we all solve that? Like if we have success and then we continue to have success, and we always want to come out with something that's on par with the expectations we've set, but you get into like a grind or something, and it's interesting trying to manage that.
Yeah, the expectations that seep in, even with like, small audience, like even with the audience of one, I feel like their yeah, expectations can seep in and it affects things, which is so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm very much about making things simpler and easier to produce. And so often, if things got crazy, I feel like I would always explicitly, like if I was a super popular YouTuber and there was people on my channel and stuff, I feel like occasionally I would intentionally make a video that explicitly says this is kind of like a reset of the expectations, and this is like I would make something in
Uh-huh.
the like as without as any polish as possible, just to show that a thing can be made with without the polish. And if and it would sort of like explicitly set its own expectations, so almost as a way to tell people that the success is not tied to the polish or the grind. It's yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
to try to almost like to take control. I guess that would definitely like lose subscribers or something, but that would be part of the statement too, is like letting off the steam build up, almost like the people that are not that are
Mhm.
there just for the high polished stuff and that'll drop out at a moment's notice. It's almost like you don't really want those people running the community or something, and you need to slow things down and people will stick around if they are there for that or something. But luckily
Yeah, I
I
remember.
don't imagine I'll ever have that problem, because I won't have an audience.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Who knows, Maybe it'll take off. Yeah, I feel like yeah, you mentioned something when we were like talking that I thought was in a similar vein interesting, where like about like audio quality, where it's like, oh, like thinking of audio quality as like a forcing function
Oh yeah.
to keep something like smaller or more, yeah, like the just like little ways to like lack polish that force the
Yeah.
audience to be only people that like really care about the content, like which
Yeah.
is such a funny idea, but I think like it does make sense if that's your goal, like
Yeah.
yeah.
It's fun. I'm always trying to like generalize stuff, and that this idea here strikes me as something that could be generalized to, yeah, to like something related to expectation setting, where or it's things can
Uh-huh.
be, yeah, things can have these little things that prove that they're authentic and that communicate to people that no tricks are going on or something. And I feel a lot of times when I'm watching videos on the internet, I like to find a video that feels authentic. Uh, there was a game
Mm.
dev that has like a low subscriber count that I started getting served their videos, and one of their videos was just them talking about some upcoming projects and not wanting to burn out. They were debating in the video whether or not to do like Ludum Dare, because they said they're working on a game right now. They're doing bug reports, and they were sort of talking themselves out of doing Ludum Dare because they wanted to give themselves like a
Mm.
intentional break. And it was just like one take, just person talking to the camera, and it was it was like this moment where it's sort of like there was no, it wasn't like they were doing Ludum Dare and they're making the game and it's a polished video and there's takes and, things. It was just like directly coming through as a person and saying that they weren't intentionally going to slow the pace. And it feels very like the video is not really playing any tricks. It's just a person talking, and not, it's like they're intentionally
Yeah.
showing the unglamorous side. And that is I think that's, to me, that's hard to beat a video like that, because whatever you do on top of it, like be a charismatic individual naturally, that is in its own way kind of false or lucky or exploiting the talents of someone. And but it's sort of like, it's like, how can you beat someone who's okay at making videos, doing like a, just like presenting who they are and not talking themselves up. You can't really add anything to that without distancing it from the audience of people who also might feel the same way or something.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a. I think it is such like an interesting balance. Like, um, I do really love the idea of like just keeping it kind of as authentic as possible, and like it's like I would love to make things that are like don't have like rough edges that like turn people off unnecessarily, because
Mm-hmm.
like I think like it like there's so many like random little things that I think like get to me, like just surfing the web or where I'm like, oh, like I where I just sort of naturally don't give things a chance because maybe uh there's just like
Yeah.
something a little off with the audio, or
Yeah. Same for
uh
me.
yeah, and it's like I would love to not turn people off unnecessarily, and also to not draw people in based on uh like clickbait, or uh means that feel like attention economy adjacent, or um but it is tough. I feel like I'm already like, maybe I mentioned this last time, but like just in creating like thumbnails and titles for like some of the chess
Yeah.
videos I've made, or it's like oh man, like the draw there's a strong pull to like use all caps, or because I know it'll get more views or whatever. It's like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah. That's such
Yeah.
a funny struggle. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
such a, it's interesting. Yeah. Like hearing other people deal with that. Cause yeah, it's like instinctively, it's like I'm doing a thing and making it public. I, and then so it's like, so in our mind, we just naturally be like, so then therefore I want people to see it. And if I want people to see it, why not like not shy away from people seeing it and do the all caps and get more people? Cause that's what I want. Right. And like, that's what
Uh-huh.
our brain is like instinctively doing. And then we have to like insert
Yeah.
this logic of like this weird like we have an artistic thing, and we're presenting things in like a timeless way, not just to get the subscribers. But it's hard to rework our brain to remind ourselves of what we actually want, instead of just making, like, it's so addictive to make numbers go up, or we're just, humans are like good at just
Yeah, yeah.
getting the most and worrying about stuff afterwards.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like it can be like so unconscious. Like there was a there's this podcast that I really like called 16th Minute of Fame, where I forget the her name.
That's funny because
Amy.
of the 15 minutes of
Yeah,
fame saying and what
yeah,
happens
yeah.
in the
It like
16th.
it like, so it follows up with people that like were like briefly internet famous for like whatever random reason. And it takes like an analysis of like how it affected them, but also like what it says about culture, and it's like it's thoughtful, and yeah, I quite like it. But there was one that she did with this YouTuber who like is a linguist, like maybe recent doctorate grad linguist guy, who talks a lot about algo speak, and how like people will naturally change how they speak online, and in different ways. Like there's like different sort of um, like linguistic, like there's like the educator voice, that it's one, and like there's and people like will do this unconsciously because they see other people doing it. And it's like, I don't even know, maybe I'm doing a voice right now, like I'm not sure, you know. Like there's like the Mr. Beast one that's like very like kind of like over the top hype, that's maybe
Yeah.
the most recognizable, you know. um but yeah, it's like, yeah, the internet just changing the way we speak in ways that are like can be quite uncomfortable. Sometimes it seems harmless, and sometimes maybe not so much. Yeah, I thought that was just a really interesting lens to something I'd never thought about before. But once they stated the subject matter, it's like, oh yeah, of course, like people do talk differently in YouTube videos, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hearing you say that there's different voices, I have this thing where, like, every once in a while I get recommended. I guess it's like Tom Scott, where he does these short videos where he sort of gets a tour of some kind of physics thing or like jumps out of whatever. Or like in the thumbnail, he's always posing with some kind of device that kind of looks like something, but you know there's like more to it, more to the story. And so whenever, like,
Uh-huh.
I almost never watch the videos, but I get served them, and then when I see the thumbnail, in my head plays out what I just imagine is going to be the introduction, which is always like this uh, on first glance looks like this regular thing, but on closer inspection you might be surprised, and then like cut to like smash
Yeah,
cut to
yeah.
all these like things, and then it like drops into some interview where they just, like, now the lead is buried successfully and they must watch to figure out like this hook that we've got on.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, what grabs people's attention?
But yeah, definitely, like, if I recognize a pattern, sometimes it bothers me a little bit with, if I associate like a certain personality with a certain pattern, and then I see many of their videos follow that same pattern, then it's not, they need to do something to interrupt the pattern to make it feel fresh.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, I feel like it's rare. I feel like min-max is like almost an exception for me, where like I mean, they're not being fully themselves, but I think they're being like, fairly authentic, it seems.
Yeah.
Um, who's to say, but I think like, I don't think they're trying to put on a performance in that way, but I like, besides them, I feel like I do gravitate towards like more explicit performance almost, where I'm like, I kind of uh like people putting on characters or personas that are like clearly not themselves. And yeah, I don't know. I think more and more that's like become appealing to me. Um, where yeah, I also like getting to know people, but I feel like I just like the parasocial thing weirds me out. Like when I like find myself like having like people in my dreams that like I've seen content of, I'm like, this feels completely wrong, and then I just have to stop, watching that for like a while, like, um, yeah, I don't know. But if it's a character, or a character that someone's playing that like shows up in a dream, I'm like, it's fine. Like it's just something I watched today. Um,
Yeah,
it's not
that's
like a
interesting. Yeah.
substitute friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be weird too to be on the other side of that, being a personality on the internet, and you sort of can see people assuming you're one kind of way, and then that's another expectation meeting thing where you you have to put on, like, slowly the person who you are would kind of diverge from the person in the videos, and you'd have to address that somehow, like keep track of it or acknowledge it or something. There was one.
Use it yourself. Yeah.
Do you know like the Polygon videos and Brian David Gilbert, and when he was at Polygon and he made these videos called Unraveled? The series was called Unraveled, and he would do
it rings a bell, but I don't.
Yeah, he seemed like very. Now he has his own personal YouTube channel. He's just like a YouTuber. I think that's the main thing he's doing, making whatever videos. He likes to do like psychological horror videos, it seems, from what I could tell for most of his videos. But I watched a couple of his, like I watched the beginning of season 2 of his Unraveled videos on Polygon, and he comes on camera and he has a mustache, which he didn't have in the previous season. And then he has like, his hair is different. And he opens with the phrase like, he's like, yeah, my hair is different. I have a mustache. I'm my own person, and you just have to deal with it. Like that was his phrase. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, like of course he would be in tune with that people look at his physical appearance and comment on it and how it changes. And that's not part of the video, but he is a real person and does change his appearance. And he's acknowledging that that's something that's happening in the videos, and that it almost that like he's not going to hide that or something. But then he like rips off the mustache. He's like, just kidding, it's a fake mustache. He rips it off, and there's like a real mustache underneath. He's like, just kidding again. Like he takes off like a wig and it's the same hair, and he's just sort of like he's like, just kidding, it's a wig. Just kidding again. It actually is my real different hair. And so it's kind of a funny, like, it was a funny bit, and it made me realize how, like, it sort of gave a nod to these parasocial things and how we evaluate people's appearance when they're just like a person making a video and they're showing up looking however they do in their actual life or something. But I found that kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely points to something very real. Or I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I don't think I would ever care about like how I look in a video, but I'm like, yeah, that's not true. Like it would get to me if someone like was like, you look weird in this video, like it would, like, if only briefly, like affect me,
Yeah, because I guess we see certain people the way they look, and that becomes their brand almost. I know at least one author that does a lot of book tours has said like they wear glasses, and maybe they could get eye surgery to not need glasses, but then they would have like they would look different. And if they're in a headshot, people that are familiar with what they look like in their brand, there's going to be less people like if Mr. Beast looked vastly different in thumbnails, we wouldn't recognize it as Mr. Beast on first glance, and that would have an effect on. So it's almost, it's like he can't do a buzz cut and get glasses, and like he could look accidentally like a different person, and then his brand is a certain, being able to put that on a thumbnail or something, and then it's like hopefully coincidentally he just wants to maintain the same experience or something like that. But he certainly would kind of be, it wouldn't be like super convenient for those people to change their appearance a lot. But then, it's just, that's like an interesting way that people get stuck or something.
Right. Yeah, I just have to sort of, I do worry for people where the online life becomes like, I don't know,
bound too tightly or
consuming.
Something.
Yeah. Like that can't be good for you. Just in general.
Yeah, I feel there is a need maybe for more content that brings that to the forefront. Like now that we have generations of people that are totally mixed up with their public and private lives, it's leading, maybe hopefully it leads to smart content creators making content about that, and then as a society we just get smarter at how to separate these things. There's like a whole learning
Yeah.
experience for everyone or something.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's I think that's true. There's a learning experience there. Like, but yeah, the internet's such like a new weird
Mm.
thing still, and yeah,
Yeah.
figuring out how to be able to see everybody else. Uh, yeah, strange thing.
Well, yeah, the other things I wanted to talk about was Blender. I was wondering, yeah, I recently shared a rigging tutorial, I think it was 5 or 10 minute rigging tutorial. That was like the exact tutorial that I needed to just quickly tell me all the key commands and how to make a skeleton, like make a set of bones inside a model, such that you can
Uh-huh.
then pose the model around, and you move the bones and it moves the geometry. And so I feel like I just kind of solidified my understanding of how to lay out like a T pose in bones and connect that to the geometry in the way that I want to, which is like there's a whole like you can paint weights on the model and then the actual geometry will bend according to the proximity to the bones if you have like a very high fidelity model or something. And but the way I want it was every like all the shin, like the shin, the lower leg, the foot, the arms, everything is like a different object. And so therefore every like a bone will sort of tightly map to one or two objects in the scene, and when you move the bone it's like you're sort of posing an action figure. There's no like the around the shoulder
Yeah,
joint,
yeah.
yeah, it's just a clean rotation rather than any sort of smoothing of the geometry. And so I learned that, which was good. And the only thing I didn't learn yet, like, and then the posing, I sort of have a set of commands in Blender that I use to like snap the camera to different angles and then select things and move and pose them. And so I feel like I could get a lot of value out of the posing that I now know how to do. But the one other thing that I don't understand at all yet is the inverse kinematics, where you can set it up so that
Hmm.
when you like position the foot and then the leg figures out where the knee needs to bend. And there's a way to just like
Yeah,
put those, you just have to like do a setting or something, but I don't exactly
yeah. I
understand
thought that was so
what's
cool.
going on there. Yeah.
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 Like just the concept of inverse kinematics, like I didn't know before I
Hmm.
learned about like through you know rigging and animating, and it's just like, oh, there's like this whole like it's like a math problem of like uh how to like there's solvers for inverse kinematic equations that um go in these engines. I thought
Hmm.
that was pretty neat.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty neat when I first learned that. But then my immediate question was, how do I access those numbers? And until
Mm.
I think I still don't fully understand. Because basically, if I threw this model into Godot, I don't know if I could just treat the model like a hierarchical object. And if I like put the model's feet on the wall, how, I couldn't just say like, go into the model, this is the foot position, calculate, recalculate. It just seems like
Right.
there'd be a hard boundary between whatever the format the model's in and how it gets imported, and there wouldn't be like a nice API or whatever for that. So that's kind of just an
Yeah.
open question. I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't actually tried out like any of this really. I want to learn. I think yeah, it would be fun and like yeah, a better way that I'm currently animating. And I want to try it out for cuz like yeah, my game is called Pretty Trees. There's a lot of trees. So I want to try it out for the trees
Hmm.
and for like every individual branch, and then see if I could have the trees like move in interesting
Yeah.
ways.
In this
Based on
tutorial,
that.
there's like a split second where they flip on some setting that they says is useful sometimes, where when you place a bone, like you're sort of looking at the 3D image directly along like one axis, like it's in orthogonal camera or something like that, where it's all
Mm-hmm.
flat, and then you're placing the bones. But then the question is, when you place a bone, wouldn't that be like a flat plane of bones? But I think there's a setting where when you place the bone, it snaps the bone to the like the obvious geometry. And the example they use are placing bones on a tree with tree branches like in every direction.
Oh,
He's basically
perfect.
just like, yeah, he's like placing the bones kind of very loosely as he looks at the tree branch. And then I think his point is that the bone, it's sort of like when you drop the bone, it gets told like snap to the geometry that's most obviously associated, so that the bone is inside of the geometry. And he
Uh-huh.
explicitly mentions like this is useful for mapping weird stuff like a bunch of tree branches, because how it's like that would be take forever to position a bone in a precise three-dimensional space that's inside of like in the the center of the branch geometry. That would be really hard to do.
Right.
I still actually don't
Right.
know. Yeah, like I know how to
Yeah.
easily move things in one axis at a time. But when I want to move them like multiple axes or into a place that I can't just sort of like do three movements along axes, I don't actually know
Uh-huh.
a quicker way to do that. I just have to keep viewing it in different angles and making sure none of it is like way off. But if I wanted the
Right.
center,
Yeah.
especially if I wanted the thing to be in the center of a tube that's like not axis aligned, it's just like a tree branch is like a tube and it's snaking around, and I want the bones to be like centered in that thing. That would be, I think that, yeah, I think there's like an affordance in Blender for doing that easily.
Uh-huh. Yeah, 3D rotations continue to break my brain. I think my brain doesn't do well with it. Um, like yeah, I've rewatched. There's like some video explaining quaternions and dual quaternions, and
Hmm.
I feel like I keep going back to it, trying to like re-understand uh, what it's saying. But yeah, in process, mostly I'm just kind of like I just fiddle with it until it seems reasonable, and I feel like I don't have a clear-eyed understanding. Yeah, because yeah, like for instance, like with the trees, at one point I was trying something that was like where you could sort of take control of the tree and then like the have the branches like fling leaves places, and it
Hmm.
turns into like a first person shooter briefly um, with the tree. And yeah, just like getting the trying to I mean, this was not using the correct tools like, the bones and rigging and all that as mentioned, but just trying to have the branches sort of rotate together in a way that like looks reasonable,
Hmm.
uh and not throw the whole structure like into disarray. It's like far more challenging than I could have originally imagined.
Yeah, stuff like those are fun challenges where it's so hard to even find the vocabulary to figure out what needs to be searched to like make it happen. And then
Hmm.
but these kind of problems are always like I do one thing at a time across several years, and then one day there's always like a day where it's like, oh, these terms that I've picked up loosely over the past like 2 years, using them in this way would be the good way to ask the question to the internet how to do this thing. And then sure enough I find
Right.
like the exact video where someone is doing like pretty much exactly that, but I never would have. It's like I can't make progress until I just happen to encounter the right way to ask the question almost, or just
Right.
think
Yeah,
about it.
that's what
Yeah.
I always tell people about like software engineering is like just like a process of like learning reference points to Google. Like you don't need to like
Yeah.
remember like specific things. It's just like you need to remember enough to know what to Google like at any given time. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. That's my perspective on it at least. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a bit mixed feelings about Blender because the other things I learned kind of this past week was reflective surfaces, where I wanted one surface. I made like a mock-up of a piano keyboard or one segment of it, and I wanted as if there was a black reflective sort of hardwood thing right behind the keys so that the keys would sort of mirror in that dark, like, glossy wood. And so I figured out just you can drop in like a reflective plane, and if you position it right, then you get the reflection that you want. And I don't even understand why that worked. It was just like you drop in this like wireframe plane that has an arrow pointing in one direction, and if you like line it up against a flat wall, it will do reflection appropriately. But I don't really know the why, like what are the boundaries of that, or how to really control that beyond just I got lucky with this one surface that was a very obvious reflection. And then the other thing was, in like the beginner's guide in that first level, that's the spaceship. They have like white, like on the floors and stuff. On the floor against the wall, there's like a thin strip of white lighting, but it's just it's around like all the floors. All the floors have this thin band of white light that's like emitting light. You can see it like illuminating things accordingly, as if there was just this smoothly lit strip. And so then I always wonder, how could I get that? Because in games you can do a point light or a spotlight or a directional light, but there's never just and then when you make an object emissive, it looks like it's glowing, but the light doesn't distribute.
But I had that confusion with the missions at the start as well. Yeah, and
I still don't. I'm sure there's like a setting in Godot to kind of get it to happen, maybe. But then in Blender 4.2, you have to go into like a different view, like composite view, and look at these nodes and insert like a new gloom node, and then like wire that into this 3-node chain, in addition to making the object like emit the color by doing it in the material settings, and then set. And then by default, it's like some kind of ray where there's like streak, like the thing is not only emissive, but it's like streaking color into this surrounding space. And so you have to like use this drop down menu to set it to gloom, and then everything in the scene. Then it's kind of like it feels almost, the scene that I tried it in, it seemed like everything was kind of blooming a little bit, and it felt like there was a thickness of almost like looking through a very fine layer of steam where everything was a little bit too like bleeding color, but it worked for my purpose. But it was one of those things where it was like, really, like obviously if I make an object, if I make it emissive, I want it to emit, where's the checkbox? And then it's like, actually, we've abstracted that in functionality into like 7 different menus and a screen you've never heard of, and what does the word composite even mean? But there you go, you have to go in there and check something.
That's been my very brief experiences with Blender, as I'm like, I only just sort of got my grasp on Godot, where I feel like I can navigate it quickly, and I'm like, I don't have the energy to like try and learn another one just yet. Lots of menus and
the like at the second like sub menu, you just know there's no way this export's going to make it to Godot. Like after you've added something other than like a simple 3D square, you're like, oh yeah, this is not just gonna magically work in Godot or something.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that export process is not always the cleanest.
But these are the kind of videos that I think I would have the best shot at getting 10K views if I made a video that was how to make like a fluorescent light up sign in Godot in a way that it emits. And if I could just be like, put text in Blender, make it like extrude it so that it's 3-dimensional thickness, like put it in cursive so that it looks like a sign, add the emissive, add the emissive, do this thing, put it in Godot, and then there you have Like, because that kind of feels fancy, is a light up sign, like like the whole thing is emissive and it's bleeding light onto the surrounding objects. That adds, that always feel like, I don't know how to do that yet at all, but if there was like a 3-minute video just saying how to do it, that would be kind of fun to just drop that into a game.
That's that's a good idea. I feel like it's like a thing that's like it's like base level enough that a lot of people would want to try it, but it's actually quite difficult to do to where like people wouldn't immediately know how to do it for sure. Like I
Yeah.
would, if I wanted to do that, I would certainly Google it and look for a tutorial. Yeah.
Yeah, those short tutorials too, like the 5-minute tutorials.
Hmm.
Like I think the one I watched was even called like for people that don't have a lot of time or something, and you can see
Uh-huh.
all the top comments are always thanking the person for just making it short and to the point, and no extra
Right.
fluff.
Right.
And I really resonate with those comments. I would like to think, if I make a tutorial that's the kind that I want to make, it would have nothing. It would just be a very clear enabling the people as fast as possible to do the thing without rambling or delay or something like that.
Right. Yeah. It needs no intro or outro. Just kind of this is
Yeah.
this is how you do this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the other two things I had were the show Andor. We could talk about that, and then depends on what you want to do. We could both play multiplayer Muck if you're interested in checking it out, or I could screen share, or we could skip that. But we could,
I am interested
yeah,
in that. Maybe we can punt that to next week
yeah,
for time purposes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then the only thing would be
It's
Andor.
like cut off.
You watched season 1 Andor?
No, I haven't watched any
Oh,
of it though I've heard it, highly recommended. I do want to check it out.
yeah. Andor season 1 starts very strong, and the overall story it tells is very good. It really, the characters are strong, and it just feels like one of those shows where they just made a lot of good decisions, and it's simple, and the production quality is where it needs to be to just tell the story. And there's many different, it's sort of like, I remember many different episodes are very different. Things will happen, and then a whole episode will just be in a different place that you didn't expect, that's got all these new things going on, and they tell the story, and then like 1 or 2 episodes later they're on to another thing that's interesting. And now season 2 is out, and so far it seems like they're still doing decently.
Uh-huh.
The I watched the first episode of season 2, and it just kind of like, it drops you in there. The dialogue is pretty tight. They sort of communicate the state that characters are in by just having them talk to each other and sort of be expressive. And then there's sort of like some funny, exciting action that takes place that's not even that complicated, but they make use of the elements of Star Wars in a way that kind of delivers action, but plays around a bit more with the stuff that we've come to know, like just the TIE fighter in a hangar sort of concept. But, and then a guy gets in, doesn't know how to fly it or something perfectly. And
Uh-huh.
they just they get like some value out of that. And there's some tension. And then you're like excited as the scene plays out. And, but then, yeah, and then there's like a quick rest. And then we get into another scene where some elements are carried through, and you're like, oh, they just do a good job of surprising the audience and the characters in the show at the same time. And then you see the character kind of, they're calculating something in their head, they're making a plan, and you're kind of excited for when are they going to make their move or something.
Mm,
It seems like, yeah,
that's cool.
it's interesting to me whenever I see a show like that. It's always just makes you think, just take all the people that made that and let them make the next thing. Like, we've done it. We've figured out how to
Uh-huh.
make good shows. Now let's just keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there'll be like a
Just
while
keep
where they just miss the ball like a bunch. and then you're like, what's going on?
Right.
Like we already know what a good show looks like. Just like uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I do wonder about that, like with like even shows where it's like they start out good and it's like the same like Game of Thrones or whatever, where it's like, oh, like I really enjoyed the first however many seasons, and then it like, I was not a fan of the ending. As I think that's the
yeah.
normal take, but
Do you
it's like,
think
yeah,
we'll
what happened,
ever a question about that is these shows that start strong and then go bad after a while, and there's like unanimous agreement of fans and everybody that there was a dropping off point. Do you think that in the
uh,
future, like, would they ever find that point and just like, let's say season 4 of Game of Thrones, I have no idea, but let's say season 4 was the drop off point, or well, example I'm more familiar with is the Mandalorian. Like season 1 and 2 of
uh,
Mandalorian, as far as I remember, season 1 and 2 were like outstanding, and season 3 was a clear drop off. So then, but they've made season 3. So the question is, like, in the future, would they just remake season 3 of a show and have this fork where there's the bad season 3 and the good season 3, which is like ten years later, they've just, because the way they reuse
do like a
IP,
remake.
right? Yeah, they always like remake, but
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
do it from like, they'll remake the whole thing instead of just dropping in, continuing where they left off in season 2, and just doing a better job of season 3. And then like people that, people would arrive having not seen the show at all, watch season 1 and 2, then they'd be presented, you could watch the old season 3 or the new season 3, and they just picked a new one. And uh it seems like that would be because, the first 2 seasons are good, you can get more use out of them and just drop in a new season that is a better fit. You could do that almost with
Uh-huh.
every show, right? You could just, every show you could kind of look at the IP, calculate the fall off where it gets bad and the fans left, and then just continue from there. And
Just
that
do a
seems like
reboot.
a way to just kind of, yeah, it's like a low cost way to polish one aspect of something.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I feel like that, I guess maybe that kind of happens, like, but in a way where, because I think like unless it's like the higher the production value of the medium it gets, where it's like, oh, like prestige television, I feel like, well, it's not like, if they tried to redo, Game of Thrones from a certain point, it would just be a different show entirely because they couldn't get all the same actors and the set, and it's like
Mm.
it's just so high budget, and that it's like they would be better off calling it something new, but maybe they, could try to, course correct still. Whereas the lower budget you go, like I've gotten like really into comics recently, like comics of all stripes, because I think like there's just something about it where like creators can be it, it's like incredibly creative, I think,
Mm.
with the medium, and like I think that is like such a thing in comics, like just like reimagining these same worlds like over and over again, particularly in like DC and Marvel and all that. It's like, it's the same characters but just reimagined and through a different, storytelling mode. And so it's like they're always doing that. They're always doing like the rewrite,
Mm.
and that's just like part and parcel of what the medium is, because I guess, and certainly I don't think they get generally get paid enough and all that, but it is inherently lower costs because you have, you know, one or two writers and a couple artists, and it's just a lot smaller of a production than than a big TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes me think of how, like, comic books, I don't know what's the frequency of their like serialization. Like some comics, there's a new one every week, maybe, or a new one every month. And so then there's like the grind of whoever's making them, like they have to make a new issue every month, and they've already done so many things, and so they're kind of like forced as a medium to do these, like make a story that's completely standalone, that reimagines some stuff that can be like churned out in a piecemeal way and keep the momentum going. Or like let's say they need to go on vacation, they need to make 2 comics and then release, one at a time, so that they keep the serialization going over the time when they're not working. And so then there's like as a effect of, because then I've seen that definitely in anime, people have talked about that with anime, like they're always dropping the next season of an anime, and so that means they need to like work ahead to create a buffer so they can have like time off, so they don't like the season don't run dry when they're taking vacation or something. And so I guess anime is kind of comics were made with the technology of the time and they're still their own medium. But then I wonder, do we now have the technology to make shows, say like an animated show? Like, I guess this is the thing, is they're doing it already with anime, this massive amount of content and shows and like hundreds and hundreds of episodes. But it's like an animated show rather than the platform or like the medium of a comic. But then because it would be kind of cool to just, like, I think what I'm just realizing is anime is this, but it would be cool to just be like every month there's a new episode, just as you would receive a new issue of a comic. There's like a new episode and it's always a reimagining or the same vibes as like, you get the issue, it drops you into the story, some pieces have been switched, and then you get your dose, like monthly dose. It would be fun to just have a show that just every month drops another episode of some universe. But maybe I'm assuming that anime has kind of already done that, and to do it well is like a grind for some kind of studio of people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I only have like surface level knowledge of these industries, and I think it is like the sort of like the cultural like context matters. Like it is different in, like, to be super reductive, like I think the 2 biggest markets, as far as I can tell, for both like animated shows and comics are the US and Japan. And it's like, it is like different depending on the place for sure. And like, as far as like serialization, like it's like for manga, like the Japanese comics, they come out weekly, and in the US I think it's more common to come out monthly. And yeah, like I think the labor practices are like not good on either front as far as I can tell. Like people, feeling like overworked or underpaid, or I think like in the US, like they also rarely get, or less often get, like IP rights, which is a whole thing. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the industry practices seem not good from my very outsider view, but the medium itself, I do appreciate for what you're describing, where it's like they can just kind of reimagine things like so quickly, and maybe they just have a more willing audience that's like willing to go to just wildly weird places, because that's just the expectation. To tie it back around is like, yeah, when you pick up, certain comics, especially from certain writers, you expect it to be very, very weird, and esoteric, and I think that as I've gotten into that, I'm like, this is maybe the medium for me to enjoy. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, the esoteric. I'll send you this link to or maybe you've seen it, this Tim Rogers video that most recently dropped. It's, he's a creator that is really doing his own thing, and this is like it's like a 9-hour film noir I assume game
Wow.
review, because he's reviewing like LA Noir, like the game. I think it's called LA Noir. It's like a detective game, and but the thing is, it's like not really a review. He's definitely played the game and enjoys it, and he's building. Like I only watched like the first hour, but he's definitely building towards some points about the game. Like as he always does, he like reveals what seems like the true beautiful nature of whatever game he's talking about, and you don't even realize it until
Uh-huh.
you're like 7 hours in. You're like, oh, he's like filled my head with all the necessary equipment to understand like this deeper thing that he's about to say. uh, but
Yeah.
I was watching that, and this is the interesting thing is, like, I know Tim Rogers. I've watched a lot of his other stuff. I've read his like Patreon post. I've seen, like, I should be the person that has enough context to be, what am I, to understand what am I seeing on screen here. But it's like sort of cosplaying a detective, talking as if he's, like that famous scene of, the camera at the detective's desk in their office, and the detective is just kind of, wearing his top hat or his trench coat and talking to the camera and maybe lighting a cigarette or something. And then he's recounting gameplay instances from the game, but as if he's talking about there's a real character who is the main character of these LA Noire games, and he's like
Uh-huh.
almost saying as if this is a fellow detective that I've come to know, and when I was first like put on the case, these are the things that stood out to me, or like that's what I would say is
Yeah.
what's going on. But then I'm sitting there being like, there's 7 hours left in this video. What's the pitch? Like, what is this? It's just this constant stream of like colorful language and analysis and pulling things together. And you're sort of waiting like 3 hours for like, when is he going to say like, so that's the, is he ever, it's like he's never dropping the beat of like, so this is what it's all about, this video. It's just like, I guess this will wash over me and I will then know it all. And that's
Yeah.
interesting. But it's just these pieces of content
Yeah.
where I'm searching for like, I need the tutorial, I need a walkthrough for this video. I need someone to just like be like, this is what's
Yeah.
happening. Like, uh,
Right.
but I'll send that link because
That sounds like a ride.
yeah, I got to watch it, and just to try to understand more of what's going on in Tim Rogers' head, basically.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like for me, for like some of these comics, and like in particular, there's like a lot of DC comics where it's like the history there is like so immense. Because it's like they've been doing it from the, I don't even know, like the turn of the like the early 1900s. They've been making these comics, and then they've had so many resets, uh, and it's like sometimes these comics will reference previous iterations of characters and things, and so like I've found, for me, for a lot of them, when it's like DC in particular, and I assume it would be the same for Marvel, like I need like a podcast to like tell me
Right.
what I'm reading, where it's like, and it's been super enjoyable for me for like to have like podcasts where it's like people with near encyclopedic knowledge of
Yeah.
these universes being like, oh, this is interesting because of this, and like, it just contextualizes everything. Otherwise, I think I would just be like, okay, like like I don't know, I don't have nearly as much to latch onto with these characters or the themes that are happening here, because I just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so meta textual at this point. Like, 100 years in, like you just need to have a guide, I think.
Yeah. That's a good point, that some of the best media today needs to come with its own like come with a partnered with an explanation of what it is, so we can actually
Right.
understand all the layers. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
For
that we can wrap up then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I'll
Thanks for talking.
see you next time.
Cool. Yeah, see you next time. Hopefully, yeah, both make good progress on our you're gonna do
Yeah.
the
Yeah, my main
video.
focus will be I think by next week I would like to have mostly this documentary done. Yeah.
And I'll have posted my at least my first silly comic book chess video.
Yeah.
That'll be my
Yeah,
goal.
I'll be interested to see what that means.
Yeah, I'm not even sure yet. It's gonna be real silly, is all I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll see you.
See ya.
Bye.